and beyond. And for the second Friday in a row, civil society groups are holding demonstrations here in the city to put pressure to the government to reroute the standard gauge railway and avoid its passage through the Nairobi National Park. Today, the lobby group is in the city centre at the historic Uhuru Park, and we are now joined by our reporter, Timothy Otieno. Timothy, thank you so much for joining us. What is the latest that you can give us?
Well, of course, the civil society group, and to be specific, the Kenya Coalition for Wildlife Conservation and Management, that is a lobby group in the country fighting for the interests of the Nairobi National Park, have presented a petition to the Ministry of Environment asking it not to allow the standard gauge railway or phase 2 of the standard gauge railway to pass through the Nairobi National Park. Now, Joy, this is the same group that did file a petition alongside activist Okiya Omtata to the National Environment Tribunal, and that tribunal on Monday suspended the commencement of the second phase of the SGR that was meant to hive off 6 kilometers of the Nairobi National Park. Now, the group says that despite the fact that, of course, there has been a petition presented before the tribunal, and the tribunal has indeed suspended the commencement of the second phase, they still feel the need to air their voice in this particular matter. This is the second Friday, as you have mentioned, and they are promising that the demonstrations are expected to take place over the coming Fridays once every week until an amicable solution is reached in the matter. But of course, the group insisting that they cannot compromise on the only national park within the vicinity of a capital city, and they are not going to accept anything less than the standard gauge railway passing through an alternative route. Now, they insist that, of course, despite the fact that they had already conducted the initial demonstrations last week and the petition before the tribunal, that indeed the Chinese constructors are already commencing the digging of tunnels within a section of the national park, and they really feel they're disturbed with this issue, and that is the petition that they presented to the Ministry of Environment. And of course, the Director of Wildlife Conservation, Mr. Stephen Manasseh, there, of course, did address the group and insisted that indeed their petition would be forwarded to the relevant body and an amicable solution would be brought forth. But of course, this comes at a time when the President himself is expected to flag off the second phase on the 26th of September. That has since been suspended by the tribunal, who had summoned, of course, the National Lands Commission, as well as the Kenya Wildlife Service and the Rift Valley, the Kenya Railways Corporation in this matter, Joy.
Well, this is not a new conversation that we are seeing, and right from the time they said that the standard gauge railway was going to go through the national park, civil society organizations and groups came up and said, you know, they were against it. But why wait for it to get close to the time for the launch for them to now start going all out? What is different this time? Because they had gone silent for some time, and then now they're back again up in arms. But then what is so different now? What is the urgent message that they want passed on?
Well, Joy, basically the lobby group insists, and of course I posed a similar question to one of the organizers of the demonstrations, and they were saying that initially they had been promised by the relevant bodies that indeed the second phase of the standard gauge railway would not touch on the Nairobi National Park. Now, what sparked this latest uproar and uprising, so to speak, was the announcement that was issued by the Kenya Wildlife Service last week on Tuesday, if I'm not wrong, and they had insisted that they were flirting with the idea of having the standard gauge railway pass through the Nairobi National Park. Now, initially the group had been promised that the park would not be touched, but following that announcement, Joy, they were forced, according to them, they say that they were forced now to go to the streets and air their grievances through that avenue, because they insist that they had held several meetings with the permanent secretary at the Ministry of the Environment, who had promised them that indeed their concerns would be considered, but they felt that their issue was not considered in regards to the Nairobi National Park, and they insist that the announcement by the KWS to have the standard gauge railway possibly pass through the Nairobi National Park came at a time when there was no quality environmental impact assessment conducted by the relevant bodies. And that is one of their key areas that they are highlighting in their petition, that first of all, why announce that the standard gauge railway will pass through the Nairobi National Park when the ministry has not followed the right procedure, and that is having the environmental impact assessment conducted first, and then a viable route suggested, after which then they could have come up with a better route. But they felt that some of the steps were not followed, and of course this is before the tribunal, but meanwhile they insist that the demonstrations will continue until the Nairobi National Park is not considered as a viable route for the standard gauge railway to pass all the way to Naivasha in its second phase. Joy.
Well, thank you so much, Timothy. We appreciate the update. Let's now move on